The person who is using you does not announce it. They never will. There is something deeply unsettling about realizing that someone you opened yourself to, someone you stayed up late for, someone you rearranged your life around, someone you defended in conversations where their name was being questioned, was never fully there. Not in the way you were, not with the same stakes, not with the same skin in the game. Avoidant attachment is one of the most psychologically complex and emotionally damaging patterns in all of human relationships. And the cruelest part is not that the avoidant person is evil. Most of them are not. The cruelest part is that they have learned, usually from very early pain, how to receive everything you offer while keeping the door to themselves permanently half closed. You feel the connection, you feel the warmth, you feel the potential, and all of that is real enough to keep you hooked. But there are 4 signs, 4 specific, identifiable patterns that reveal when an avoidant has stopped showing up for the relationship and started simply taking from it. What those signs expose about them will sting. What they expose about you will change everything. The first sign is so subtle that most people miss it entirely, and that is precisely why it is so dangerous. An avoidant who is using you will take your emotional generosity and give you inconsistency in return, and they will make you feel as though that inconsistency is somehow your fault. This is not an accident. This is not carelessness. This is a deeply ingrained psychological pattern that functions almost like a survival mechanism. When you were a child, and the people who were supposed to love you were unpredictable, warm one moment and cold the next, present one day and emotionally absent the next, your nervous system did something remarkable. It adapted. It learned that closeness was dangerous. It learned that needing someone was a liability. And so the avoidant person grew up with an internal architecture that is fundamentally designed to push away the very thing they need most, which is genuine human connection. Now here is where it gets painful for you, because when you are in a relationship with someone who operates from this place, their inconsistency does not feel like a red flag at first. It feels like a puzzle. Human beings are meaning-making creatures. We are wired at the deepest neurological level to search for patterns, to find causes, to assign reasons to behavior. So when someone is warm and engaged with you on Tuesday, and then distant and cold by Friday with no explanation, your brain does not say, "This person has an avoidant attachment style and is emotionally unavailable." Your brain says, "What did I do wrong? What changed? What can I fix?" And just like that, the avoidant person has your complete psychological attention without having to give you anything real in return. This is the first way they use you. Not through malice, not through a calculated scheme, but through a pattern that is so deeply embedded in who they are that they often do not even see it themselves. You become the person who is constantly trying to earn consistency. You show up more, you communicate more carefully, you become hypervigilant to their moods, their tone, their energy, because somewhere in your nervous system, you have decided that if you can just figure out the right combination, if you can just be the right version of yourself at the right moment, they will finally give you the stability you are craving. And the more you chase that stability, the more power they hold over you. Not because they sought that power, but because you handed it to them in your desperation to make sense of something that was never going to make sense. Inconsistency is not a mystery to be solved. It is a message to be heard. The second sign cuts even deeper, and it is this. An avoidant who is using you will allow you to carry the emotional weight of the relationship almost entirely on your own. Think about that for a moment. Think about who initiates the conversations. Think about who reaches out first after a silence. Think about who brings up the future, who talks about what you are building together, who raises concerns when something feels off. If the answer to all of those questions is you, if you are the one who is perpetually paddling while they sit in the boat, then you are not in a partnership. You are in a performance, and you have been cast in the role of the person who cares enough for 2 people. Psychologists who study attachment theory have documented this pattern extensively. The avoidant individual has a deeply unconscious but powerfully consistent strategy. They allow the anxiously attached person to pursue while they maintain distance. And this dynamic feeds something in both of them. The anxious person gets moments of closeness when they pursue hard enough, which reinforces the pursuing behavior. The avoidant person gets the comfort of connection without ever having to take the terrifying risk of actually being emotionally vulnerable and initiating that connection themselves. It is a perfect, destructive, self-sustaining loop, and you are the engine that keeps it running. Here is the question you must force yourself to sit with, even though it is going to be profoundly uncomfortable. What would this relationship look like if you stopped initiating? What would happen to the communication, to the connection, to the sense that this person is with you, if you simply stopped paddling for 1 week, for 2 weeks, for a month? Most people who have been in this dynamic already know the answer, and the answer terrifies them, because the answer is that the relationship would go largely silent. The avoidant person would not suddenly step up and start doing the emotional labor they have been avoiding. They would simply retreat further into the comfortable distance they have always preferred. And the silence would confirm something you have probably suspected for a long time, but have been too afraid to acknowledge, that what you have been calling a relationship was largely a construction of your own effort, your own hope, and your own refusal to see clearly. This is not said to humiliate you. This is said because you deserve clarity. You deserve to understand the actual dynamics of what you have been experiencing, rather than continuing to walk through a fog of uncertainty and self-blame. Because when you carry the emotional weight of a relationship alone, you are not being loving. You are enabling avoidance. You are making it possible for someone to receive the benefits of intimacy without paying the psychological cost of vulnerability. And every time you do that, every time you reach out first, every time you smooth over the silence, every time you make it easy for them to stay disconnected, you are teaching them that they do not have to show up. You are reinforcing the very behavior that is causing you pain. The third sign is perhaps the most psychologically sophisticated of all four, and it is the one that most people find the hardest to recognize because it masquerades as something beautiful. An avoidant who is using you will share just enough of themselves, just enough vulnerability, just enough depth, just enough of their inner world to make you feel uniquely chosen, while simultaneously never letting you close enough to actually know them. This is not a conscious manipulation in most cases, but the effect is identical whether it is conscious or not. You get these extraordinary moments of connection. They open up about their childhood. They tell you something they claim they have never told anyone else. They look at you in a way that makes you feel seen and understood and special. And then the door closes again. The walls go back up. The distance returns. And you are left holding this precious fragment of them, convinced that if you can just be patient enough, careful enough, worthy enough, they will eventually let you all the way in. They will not. This is the brutal truth that attachment psychology forces us to confront. An avoidant person who has not done serious, sustained, intentional work on their attachment wounds does not gradually open up in the context of a romantic relationship. The opposite tends to happen. The closer you get, the more threatened their nervous system becomes, and the more aggressively they pull back. The moments of vulnerability you receive are not previews of a deeper intimacy that is coming. They are the ceiling. They are as far as this person is capable of going right now, in their current state of psychological development. And the tragedy is that they probably do not fully understand this about themselves. They probably believe, on some level, that they want closeness. They may even tell you they want closeness. But wanting something and being capable of tolerating it are two completely different things. And for the avoidant person, genuine intimacy triggers a threat response that is older and more powerful than any conscious desire they have. So what happens to you in this dynamic? You become addicted to the fragments. You start organizing your emotional life around the rare moments when they let you in. Those moments become disproportionately powerful in your psychology. Not because they are so extraordinary in themselves, but because they are so rare. Scarcity creates value. This is not a romantic principle. This is a neurological one. Your dopamine system responds more intensely to intermittent rewards than to consistent ones. This is the same mechanism that makes gambling so psychologically addictive. You never know when the next moment of real connection is coming, so you stay at the table. You keep playing, you keep investing, and the house, the avoidant person's emotional distance, always wins in the end. What you must understand, at a level deeper than intellectual comprehension, is that you are not special for being the one they occasionally open up to. You are not uniquely positioned to heal them. You are not the exception to the pattern. Every person this individual has been close to has probably received the same fragments, felt the same sense of being chosen, and walked away eventually with the same confusion and the same grief. The story is not about you. The story is about a wound that exists in them that has nothing to do with your worth, your lovability, or your capacity for connection. And as long as you are telling yourself that story, the story where your patience and your love will be the thing that finally breaks through, You are using yourself as badly as they are using you. Somewhere in the middle of all of this, you stopped asking whether this relationship was good for you. That is the moment worth examining. That is the moment that deserves your full, unflinching attention. Because it was not a dramatic moment, it was not a conscious decision. It happened gradually, quietly, the way water slowly erodes stone without ever making a sound. You woke up one day and realized that the primary question driving your emotional life was no longer whether you were happy or fulfilled or genuinely loved. The primary question had become, how do I keep this person from pulling away? And that shift, that subtle, devastating shift in what you were optimizing for, is one of the most reliable signs that something has gone profoundly wrong in the dynamic you are living inside. The fourth sign is the one that exposes the full weight of what is happening, and it demands a level of honesty from you that is going to be genuinely difficult to summon. An avoidant who is using you will accept everything you bring to the relationship: your time, your emotional energy, your loyalty, your patience, your physical presence, your willingness to understand and accommodate and wait, while consistently failing to reciprocate in the ways that actually matter. Not failing in small incidental ways, failing in the structural ways, the ways that define whether two people are actually building something together, or whether one person is building while the other person watches from a comfortable distance and enjoys the shelter without ever picking up a single brick. Look at the architecture of what you have created together. Look at it honestly, without the softening lens of hope or the distorting filter of how good it feels in the best moments. Who has made sacrifices for this relationship? Who has adjusted their life, their schedule, their expectations, their standards? Who has had conversations that were painful and necessary because the relationship required it? Who has shown up on the difficult days, not just the easy ones? Who has communicated their needs and then waited, sometimes for a very long time, for those needs to be met? If the answer to all of those questions points consistently in one direction, and that direction is toward you, then you must confront what that asymmetry actually means. Because in a genuine partnership, the labor is not perfectly equal every single day. Life does not work that neatly, but over time, across the full landscape of the relationship, there is a rough reciprocity. There is a sense that both people are invested, both people are sacrificing, both people are choosing this, actively, repeatedly, not just tolerating it passively. What the avoidant person offers instead of reciprocity is presence without investment. They are there, sometimes physically, sometimes emotionally, in brief flashes, but they are not in it the way you are in it. They have not reorganized their inner world around this relationship. They have not made themselves vulnerable to its outcome. They have not allowed themselves to need it in the way that real love requires you to need something. And because they have not taken that risk, they have also not taken on the responsibility that comes with it. They are receiving the warmth of the fire you built without ever gathering the wood. And you have been so grateful for their presence near the fire that you have not stopped to notice that you are the only one who is cold. This is the part where the psychology becomes genuinely confrontational, because what sustains this dynamic is not just the avoidant person's behavior. What sustains it is something inside of you, something that decided at some point that partial love was better than no love, something that learned, perhaps very early, perhaps in a family where affection was conditional or unpredictable, that you had to earn your place in someone's life through effort and patience and self-erasure. Something that confused the anxiety of uncertainty with the excitement of genuine connection, because in your nervous system, those two feelings live uncomfortably close together. The avoidant person did not create that wound in you, but they are, whether they know it or not, living inside it. And the relationship is being sustained not by mutual love, but by the intersection of their fear of closeness and your fear of abandonment. John Bowlby, who developed attachment theory across decades of careful research, described the attachment system as a biological imperative, a deep, ancient drive to seek proximity to those we have bonded with, especially under conditions of threat or stress. What he also documented, with remarkable clarity, was how early experiences of inconsistent caregiving produce adults who are simultaneously desperate for connection and deeply ambivalent about it. The avoidant person is not cold because they do not feel. They are avoidant because they feel too much and learned too early that feeling too much was dangerous. Their emotional system learned to shut down before it could be hurt. And what that means for you, practically and painfully, is that the depth of your love is not a sufficient condition for their healing. Love is not a surgical tool. You cannot love someone's attachment wounds away. You cannot be patient enough, or present enough, or understanding enough to do the psychological work that only they can do for themselves. And yet you have been trying. You have been trying with everything you have. You have been extending grace when grace was not returned. You have been interpreting their withdrawal as pain rather than as rejection, which is generous and compassionate and, in the long run, profoundly damaging to you. Because every time you reframe their unavailability as something to be understood rather than something to be responded to, you delay the moment of clarity that you actually need. You stay in the interpretation loop rather than stepping into the reality that the behavior, whatever its origin, is causing you genuine harm. The origin of a wound does not change the wound. Understanding why someone cannot show up for you does not make their absence less real. There is a concept in psychology called the locus of control, the degree to which a person believes they have agency over the outcomes in their life. People with a strong internal locus of control believe that their actions shape their reality. People with an external locus of control believe that outcomes are largely determined by forces outside themselves. What the avoidant dynamic does over time is systematically erode your internal locus of control within the relationship. Because no matter what you do, no matter how carefully you communicate, how patiently you wait, how thoroughly you try to understand, the outcome remains largely the same. The avoidant person continues to be unavailable in the ways that matter, and your brain, searching desperately for a causal explanation, starts to conclude that the variable must be you, that you are somehow insufficient, that you are the problem to be solved, that if you could just become the right version of yourself, the relationship would transform. This is one of the most insidious forms of psychological damage that this dynamic inflicts. Not the pain of the unavailability itself, but the story you build around that unavailability. The story that makes it about your worth rather than about their limitation. The story that keeps you oriented towards self-improvement as a strategy for earning love, rather than towards self-respect as a foundation for requiring it. Because here is what the healthiest, most psychologically grounded version of you already knows, even if it has been buried under months or years of hoping and adjusting and waiting. You do not earn love through suffering. You do not prove your worth through endurance. A relationship that requires you to continuously shrink, continuously pursue, continuously carry weight that should be shared, that relationship is not a testament to your devotion. It is a demonstration of a wound that has not yet been healed. The avoidant person in your life is not a villain. They are a person in pain who has developed a coping strategy that happens to be incompatible with the kind of love you are capable of giving and the kind of love you deserve to receive. Holding both of those truths simultaneously, compassion for their struggle and clarity about your own needs, is one of the most psychologically demanding things a human being can do. It is far easier to collapse into one or the other, to demonize them so that leaving feels justified, or to sympathize with them so completely that your own needs disappear entirely. The hard path, the honest path, is the one where you see them clearly and see yourself clearly at exactly the same time. Where you say, this person is in genuine pain, and this dynamic is causing me genuine harm, and both of those things are true, and only one of them is my responsibility to carry. Real love does not leave you chronically confused about where you stand. That sentence is simple enough to read in 3 seconds and complex enough to sit with for the rest of your life. Because if you have been inside an avoidant dynamic for any significant length of time, confusion has become so normalized that you have stopped recognizing it as a problem. You have started treating uncertainty as a natural feature of intimacy rather than as a signal that something fundamental is broken. You wake up and you do not know where you stand. You have a good conversation and you feel hopeful, and then 3 days of distance follow and you feel lost again. You analyze their words, their tone, their response time, the temperature of their attention, and you have become so skilled at this analysis that it feels almost like a relationship in itself. The relationship with the idea of them, the relationship with the possibility of them, because the actual person, in their full, consistent, present reality, has never been fully available to you. This is the environment that avoidant attachment creates for the people who love avoidance, an environment of chronic, low-grade uncertainty that your nervous system eventually adapts to, the same way a body adapts to living at high altitude. You stop noticing the thin air. You stop noticing how hard you are working just to breathe. And because the adaptation is gradual, because it happens across hundreds of small moments rather than one dramatic event, you lose the reference point for what healthy actually feels like. You forget that relationships are not supposed to feel like this. You forget that consistency is not a luxury in love, it is the foundation. You forget that being with someone should, on balance and over time, make you feel more secure in yourself, not less. Viktor Frankl, writing from the depths of his experience in Nazi concentration camps, argued that human beings can endure almost any suffering if they can find meaning in it. This insight is profound and true, and also, in the context of avoidant relationships, extraordinarily dangerous. Because the person who loves an avoidant is almost always a meaning maker of the highest order. You have taken the suffering of this relationship and you have constructed an elaborate and emotionally compelling narrative around it. You are patient because real love requires patience. You are staying because you do not give up on people. You are enduring because you understand that they have been hurt and healing takes time. Every piece of pain has been assigned a meaning that makes it not only bearable, but noble. And that nobility, that sense that your suffering is evidence of the depth of your love, is keeping you locked inside a dynamic that is slowly, consistently diminishing you. The question that needs to be asked, and asked with genuine courage rather than rhetorical deflection, is this: what are you actually waiting for? Not in the abstract, not in the language of hope and potential, but concretely and specifically. What is the evidence you are waiting for that will tell you this person is capable of giving you what you need? How long have you been waiting for that evidence? What would need to happen, and by when, for you to conclude that it is not coming? These are not cruel questions. These are the questions of someone who respects you enough to treat you as an adult who is capable of honest self-examination. Because without a concrete answer to those questions, waiting is not hope. Waiting is avoidance on your part. A different kind of avoidance, but avoidance nonetheless. You are avoiding the grief of accepting what this relationship actually is, rather than what you need it to be. Grief is the word that belongs in this conversation, and it is a word that most people in this situation resist with everything they have. Because grief implies finality. Grief implies that something is over, or that something never was what you believed it to be, and both of those realizations carry a weight that can feel genuinely unsurvivable in the acute moments of facing them. But here is what the psychology of loss and healing consistently demonstrates. The grief you are avoiding by staying in a state of perpetual hope is not smaller than the grief of acceptance. It is larger. It accumulates. Every day that you spend waiting for something that is not coming adds to the total weight of what will eventually need to be processed. You are not protecting yourself from pain by staying. You are deferring it. You are borrowing against a future emotional debt that is growing interest every single day. There is also something that must be said about the role that your own self-concept plays in sustaining this dynamic. The story you tell about yourself, about who you are in relationships, about what you deserve, about what love is supposed to look like, was written long before you met this avoidant person. You have read all of this. You have recognized yourself somewhere in these pages. And now comes the only moment that actually matters. Not the understanding, not the recognition, not the intellectual clarity, but what you choose to do with it starting right now, today, in the next hour of your life. The avoidant person did not break you, but you have been breaking yourself slowly, persistently, with extraordinary dedication, in the hope that your suffering would eventually be enough to make someone capable of loving you the way you deserve to be loved. It will not be enough. It has never been enough. And somewhere beneath all the hoping and the waiting and the careful self-editing, you already know that. The standard you walk away from teaches people what you are willing to accept. The standard you hold teaches you what you actually believe you are worth. Those two things are not always aligned. The work, the real work, the work that changes everything, is making them align. You are not too much. You are not too needy. You are not asking for something unreasonable when you ask to be chosen consistently, fully, and without conditions. That is not a demand. That is the absolute minimum of what love is supposed to be. Now act like you believe that.